Let's make some noise. Come on.
Thank you once again, Mr. Nick Foles, for that warm welcome. And indeed, let's make some noise because you've arrived back on the final word. That's right. We're back. Man, it seems like yesterday we were here, and we are. We're back on the final word with MattyB here on the Ep127 Sports Network. I want to ask your forgiveness up front. I'm exhausted. Burning the candle at 17 different ends here over the last few days, but you know what? It makes you feel alive, and I'm going to give you the best I can tonight. I am going not to mail it in. I am going to provide you the talent and the entertainment that you deserve. But please understand that I am running on beyond empty. So it's great to be back here for another fun episode of the Final Word with MattyB. And as you can tell by the show title, it's Quiet Night? Question mark. I question it, or it's a question mark because, as far as I know, it's a quiet night. But we're gonna. Everything is open for discussion tonight. Obviously, there's some news that I haven't been able that happened over the weekend. Coming on last night. It was more of a rant. For those of you that did not see the show, go back and look at it, please. But I kind of went on an hour and 20-minute tirade about the Phillies and about how, about homers and all that. My typical shtick was sort of what I did last night. And we never even got to the talk of, the Bryce Huff thing. The Eagles were able to move off of Bryce Huff. We never talked about that. Never talked about Tyson Forrest. They're re-signing with the Flyers, which it's not as earth-shattering as some people think it is. But we never talked about that. We never talked about the other off-season moves the Flyers have made internally with some of their own players. So tonight, I guess maybe we'll kind of throttle back to that and get into some of that conversation. And yes, we'll sprinkle in some more Phillies talk as the season continues on. Mick Abel back in the starting rotation, back up with the team. What does that mean for Aaron Nola? And more particularly, what does that mean for Aaron Nola's status in the future in the rotation? So obviously everything's on the table tonight. Well, and if you want me to go back down the rant, I will, because obviously things have not changed, and I still feel the way I do. We are also going to start our greatest Phillies trades of all time list tonight. That's right, my top 10 greatest, MattyB's greatest Phillies trades of all time. We'll begin tonight with debut number 10. I don't have a graphic, but I have the trade. So I'll drop that in there, and we'll start down that road, of course. And then also your day in Philadelphia sports history, your other night segment, and your card review, all on tap here tonight, all on the table for discussion. So welcome back. Let's get it going in. Let's get it strapped on, strapped up, strapped in. Keep your heads, hands, and feet inside the car at all times. And let's roll tonight, folks, here on the Final Word with MattyB on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Ricky is watching. Ricky, how are you? Joe Hale. What's up, brother? And then, are the phone lines open? They are not, Ricky, and I don't think they're opening tonight. I just don't have the what's the word? Just energy for it. I'll get to the phone lines, Ricky. I promise. But we'll do them. We will do phone lines. Not tonight though, but we will do phone lines. I'm sorry. But I know it's going to happen at some point. I promise. But tonight, I don't think I'm going to do it. But let's go with the show. Let's go with our night in Philadelphia sports history. We're going to go back to the ripe old year of 1997, and it's a baseball fact. Because on this night back in 97, the Phillies selected with the number 2 overall pick in the 1997 MLB amateur draft, a outfielder from from Florida State University by the name of J.D. Drew. We all remember this. Drew, of course, decided not to sign with the Phillies, and which was, obviously elevated him to villain status in the city that's shared for those that, go out on a limb to purposely alienate the Philadelphia Philly or the Philadelphia sports fan base. But J.D. Drew did not sign. He sat for a year unsigned, and then he re-entered the draft in 1998, and then was later on taken by I believe it was the Cardinals that took him. The Cardinals? And then he ended up signing with the Cardinals. But on this day back in 1997, the Phillies selected J.D. Drew, and J.D. Drew promptly decided not to sign. Now, J.D. Drew ended up having a decent season, decent career. I think it was overall. I think it was more of a. I don't think it was as the expectations of JD Drew's career. I don't think it met all the hype that was around him not wanting to sign with the Phillies and all that. And obviously it couldn't have happened to a worse person or a better person because you don't do that. I'm a firm believer, and honestly I am. If I was in a sports situation coming out of college or going into a draft, whatever the situation might be, and I'm selected by a team, I'm going to play for them because they had enough faith and confidence in me. And then, I'm going to go at least sign my first contract with them. I don't have to necessarily play with them my entire career, but I do owe them that. And JD Drew said he wasn't going to do that. And he sat for a year and re-entered the draft in 1998. Again, elevating him to public enemy number one status here in Philadelphia, along with his agent, Scott Boras. So I remember this time very, very, very vividly. I remember this period very vividly when JD Drew was selected by the Phillies back in 97 and then would go on and not play a game for the Phillies. So there you go. There is your number. There's your day in Philadelphia sports history. Brought to you by the fine folks here at the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Michael Papernick checks in. I cannot wait for Abel's second start. When will that be? Do you know? Is that coming up soon? Is that going to be in the Toronto series? Let's take a look and see that now that you guys mention it. When is Mick Abel on the bump to start here? Let's bring up the schedule. Phillies, of course, in Toronto tomorrow night to begin a 6-game road trip. It's going to take them to Toronto and Pittsburgh. So Sanchez is pitching tomorrow night, as of right now. On Wednesday, Mick Abel. There you go. So we ain't going to have to wait that long. Mick Abel will start Wednesday night in Toronto against Jose Berrios. So Jose Berrios versus Mick Abel on Wednesday night in Toronto for the Phillies. So there you go, Michael. You ain't have to wait that much longer because he's going to be pitching on Wednesday. As of right now, I'm looking at the schedule. So, I mean, I might be wrong. Who knows? I remember the fans throwing batteries at you. Yes, I do too. I do too, man. Can we open the phone lines tomorrow night? Ricky, tomorrow night, what time will I be home? You know what? Tomorrow night, listen, if I hadn't just gotten home an hour ago, we would do the phone lines today. So a little transparency. I have a summer job. That's right. I'm back in the workforce with the rest of you schlubs, which, upsets me, but not really. I'm umpiring. I umpire all day, every day up in Cooperstown, New York. I'm at my second home in central New York right now, and I'll be based out of there for at least the next 3 months, working at a place called Cooperstown Dreams Park, which is right outside of the village of Cooperstown. And yes, that Cooperstown where the Hall of Fame is. And I umpire up there. This tournament every week is new teams that show up, and it's a all week long tournament. It's fun. But it's a lot of work, and I am a crew chief of my crew, my umpiring crew, and I only have 4 umpires. So we're trying to make about, 35 games fit into a 4-man schedule over the next 5 days. So there's a lot of 3 games, a lot of 2 games a day, a lot of 3 games a day, a lot of back-to-backs, that kind of thing. So, this is probably not the best week in the world for me to be kind of creating something new with this network because I'm really taxed for time now. Typically, it's not as time consuming. I can work it in, but this week when you're dealing with a 4-man crew, it's a little rough. Hopefully next week we'll go back to 5-man and I'll be able to be more fluid. But right now, I think tomorrow my games are in the morning and then in the early afternoon. Yeah, I think I might be able to do tomorrow night with the phone lines. Let's put a pin in that there, Ricky Deal. And yes, I know I've promised you the phone lines, and I will deliver. It will be part of the show. Mick Abel is starting tomorrow. I just saw that. Maybe I'm looking at something wrong, Joe. But ESPN is reporting that tomorrow night, it's going to be Christopher Sanchez versus Bowden Francis. And then on Wednesday night, today's Monday, right? Have we skipped off? Maybe I'm in the wrong day of the week. Yeah, today's Monday. And tomorrow or Wednesday is going to be Mick Abel versus Jose Berrios. And this is what ESPN is reporting. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's what they're reporting. I'm wrong about Abel. When is he pitching? Yeah, he's pitching Wednesday. Yes, I've been saying that. He's pitching Wednesday as Wheeler is out with paternity. Yeah. JD Drew played from 98 to 2011. Yeah, over what spans of what was he with? The Cardinals. I remember him with the Red Sox at one point. I mean, a very, for the number two at that time, overall pick of the draft, not an auspicious career. Definitely a career that fell short of expectations. I remember watching JD Drew's career kind of plummet in the making there. So, you know, and Michael's also saying JD Drew's batting average was career batting average was 278. You know, I'll take that, 278. But he just never really moved the needle with all the hype around him as the number two overall. Then all the drama around him with the Phillies situation. He never really kind of delivered on all that, in my opinion. So it was a tumultuous time, and I recall that. And I think the hardest part about that whole situation, and right now is I'm sorry, who's saying that? So JD Drew's career batting average 278. Michael Papernick is saying Wheeler's pitching on Friday night. Well, ESPN is reporting that Friday night the Phillies are undecided on who they're going to go, and it's going to be Bailey Falter pitching for the Pirates. So we're going to get an old friend on Friday. But going back to what Michael Papernick's talking about JD Drew and his career 278 batting average, I think the worst part about that whole thing with JD Drew for me was the fact that for the first time, it became increasingly evident to me, or it was known to me that some people just didn't like Philadelphia. And I was like, wow, well, I mean, really? Why don't you want to come play here? It's the most passionate fan base in America. We care the most about what's going on in your life. In fact, we care way too much about what's going on in your life. And that was probably the hardest part of the whole thing. Not necessarily because JD Drew is a douche or whatever, but he didn't want to play here. And why would you not want to come play here? And yeah, that was probably the hardest thing about that whole JD Drew thing for me. Because in 97, I was a wee bit younger and naive. What, 23, 24, something like that? Yeah, 23, 24 years old. So I still felt the world smiled on this town. And, but I guess I was about to be educated. But yeah, JD Drew, man. Wheeler's pitching. Again, the Phillies are ESPN is listing that as undecided. I'm not saying you're wrong, but ESPN is listing as that as undecided. Hubert, Gaffney Racing Stables Limited, or LLC. What's up, man? Sanchez and Abel and Luzardo, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Yeah, that sounds about right. Sanchez, Abel, and Luzardo. Now, is that threesome? And I guess what we got, Bowden, Berrios, and then on Thursday pitching for Toronto is Chris Bassett. That's, Chris Bassett versus Jesus Luzardo. That's going to be, listen, nothing's getting easier for the Phillies. Nothing. This series with Toronto is not going to be easy. And I don't think, well, yeah, I do. I think the series against the Pirates will be very easy, but the series against Toronto is not going to be easy. And it's interesting. This is an interesting series in early June because a lot of the people, and yes, I will use the H word here, the homers out there, one of their key phrases or one of their crutches that they like to lean on is the whole, well, it's early. It's early in 162 games. Well, we're coming up to game 60, and we're in June. And, I don't know when officially can you stop saying it's early in the baseball season? Is it reserved for the All-Star break, or is it reserved for a date on the calendar, a month of the year? I think June is an appropriate time, maybe not early June, but I think June is an appropriate time to stop saying that it's early in the baseball season because we're coming up on, not the halfway point, but game 60. So, yeah, and that excuse is wearing out. So this series against the Blue Jays is a good early summer test for this team that's struggling mightily right now and how they respond with making some changes with the rotation, making some changes in the bullpen. Of course, not making any changes offensively yet. But how do they respond against a Blue Jays team that's not great, but they're competition to the Phillies. So we'll wait and see. And tomorrow night here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network, we'll be back with the Fightins final as usual. And here is your lineup for the series against the Blue Jays: Steve Fuentes or Fenentes on Tuesdays, Pat Bernard on Wednesday, and Mike Laro, Jesus Christ, has you on Thursday here on the Fightins final. So make sure you're tuned in. Did you notice that I'm not in that? That's right. MattyB is not in the Fighting's final for a second straight series. Keep track of that, folks. Keep track of that. So make sure you're tuned in for after every Phillies games for the Fighting's final. The Flyers are going to make a major announcement. So a major announcement. I just looked ahead of what that major announcement is. I know, and I've heard about this before. I did hear about this before. Luke Richardson is going to be announced. I did hear that he was part of a potential Rick Tocchet staff. I don't know if it's a major announcement, but obviously, if you look at rounding out your staff, it is. Obviously, we're getting closer to the draft on 27, 28 June. We got to get, the staff together, got to get this plan for the season together. And Rick Tocchet is now going to go ahead and make Luke Richardson one of his running dogs there. And interesting move. But we're going to talk some Flyer stuff here in a little bit. Cardinals, Braves, Dodgers, Boston are the teams he played for. So he played for the Cardinals, Braves, Dodgers. Again, I totally forgot about the Braves and the Dodgers. I know he played for the Cardinals and Boston, but I totally forgot about him playing for the Braves and Dodgers. Am I available to go live with me on Facebook now? No, I'm doing a show, Rick. I can't. It's like, hey guys, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go live with Ricky on Facebook. Not tonight. Ricky, we'll open the phone lines tomorrow. I promise you. I promise. I'll make a promise. 162 games divided by 3 is 54 games each, and we are five games, 4 losses, all at home. Past the early mark. Thanks, Rob Thompson. 162 games divided by 3 is 54 games each. And we are 5 games, 4 losses, all at home. Past the early mark, thanks, Rob Clown. I don't know what that. We are 5 games and 4 losses, 5 or 54, huh? And we are 5 games, 4 losses, all at home. I don't know how that equates to the math you did at the beginning of the question. I understand what the struggles are, but what's the math have anything to do with it? Listen, I'm not going to. You should have been here last night. It was epic. Hubert Gaffney Racing Stables LLC. It was epic. I went on a rant that would have woken the dead last night about the homers and the misplaced, expectations of this baseball team to potentially win a World Series, which I don't think they will. Not right now. Not right now. Currently constructed. I don't think they're going to win a World Series. I went on a rant. And one of the questions that was brought up, and it was brought up, I think, adequately, it was let's be fair about Rob Thompson. Let's be fair about it. And I think we have to be. Does he deserve some of this? Yeah, absolutely. But did he assemble the roster? Did he bring in the mismatched players that are on this team right now? No. He hasn't done that. Dave Dombrowski did that. Dave Dombrowski gave him a roster. And I think if you once it's all said and done with, and once it all settles, and please don't take this as as sort of an endorsement to keep Rob Thompson around, because I still think the easiest way to shake this team up and the quickest way to shake this team up without throwing in the towel for the season would be to fire the manager. But if you kind of look at these things after it's all said and done with, and this team is no more, and these players are no more, and we move on to a different era, when we look back at this, I think Rob Thompson is going to get a little bit more, should receive a little bit more credit than he got. Because I think as we move further into this, and then later on further away from this, I think it's going to become very evident of just how mismatched this team was, and just how poorly constructed this team was. Not from a standpoint of bad players, but just players that were too similar to each other, players that were too, just way too similar to each other and what they brought to the game. And I think after some time has passed and you look at the numbers based on the players, I think Rob Thompson is going to get a little bit more of a, a little bit more credit there, because again, I'm not endorsing or advocating keeping Rob Thompson. I still think, as I said, getting rid of the manager is the easiest way to do it. And but I think more and more attention needs to be paid about Dave Dombrowski and how he's mismanaged a situation with some money, was given some money, and he mismanaged it. Dave Dombrowski doesn't receive nearly as much criticism as he deserves. And it's time to start laying that criticism at his feet. I know he's not the GM. He's the, president of baseball operations or whatever. But he's kind of the GM. But it's time for Dave Dombrowski to start paying some criticism because he assembled this product. This is his team. He decided to go out last offseason and only sign about 3 players. He decided not to trade Alec Bohm. He decided to continue to run out Brandon Marsh on this roster. This is all coming from Dave Dombrowski. And Rob Thompson's just there to be like, okay, well, now I got to play this guy. I got to move this guy. I got to get this guy here. I got to try to make this thing work. And again, I'm not saying Rob Thompson is a great, no, Rob Thompson is a terrible manager. He is. And yes, if I woke up tomorrow and found out the Phillies had fired him, I'd be like, great. Now who's in the seat? I'm not going to shed any tears for him. I'll give you that. But I think the deeper we look at this, I think it's pretty evident, man. Dombrowski really deserves more credit for messing this thing all up. So I don't know if it makes any sense. But I got your point there. Hypothetically, if Paul Skeens was available and the Phillies were interested, would you offer for him? Come on, man. That's that Michael. Come on. That's an unrealistic type of trade, Mike. If Paul Skeens was available, it's not what I would. First off, yeah, I guess you would have to probably be. I guess the Pirates would be like, well, what do you think he's worth? I don't know, man. What do you offer for him? You're obviously going to have to offer all top end pitching talent that you have in your system, and you might have to throw in an existing starter. So, who's under contract? So I'm going to probably go with obviously Abel and Painter. Who else? Abel, Painter, probably off the current roster. You probably have to go in with I'd say Suarez, but he's a free agent next year, so they probably wouldn't be into that. Probably throw in Christopher Sanchez. So Abel, Miller, Sanchez, Crawford, Gabriel Racones Jr., and Eduardo Tait. That would be my offer for Paul Skeens. But I would want Paul Skeens and Bednard, the closer. I'd want those 2 players in return. If they would do that, if I could get those 2 in return for that haul, I would seriously consider that trade. But that's never going to happen. Paul Skeens is never going to be offered. I'm not saying never. He will be at some point, but that point ain't going to be for years. Can you send me a friend request on Facebook? I will after the show, Ricky. Yeah, I promise. 54 games, early 54, mid. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. Nothing fair about Rob Thompson. Just fire him, which should have happened after the Arizona series. I 100% agree. I thought they should have fired him after that series too. I think he hit the. I don't know. It wasn't a low point for me and Rob Thompson. It was just maybe the point of realization that this was what he was, and that I don't really want that kind of manager here. I think I held on to the whole aspect that Rob Thompson came from the Yankees, came from Joe Torre, came from that dynasty of great teams back then. And there's no way in hell that he manages from binder. He's got to manage more from the heart or for the feel of the game. I held on to that belief until that Arizona debacle in 23. And then after that, I realized this guy has no clue what he's doing. He has no feel for baseball. He's managing from a binder. And you're right, Michael Papernick. I was ready to move on from Rob Thompson as well at that juncture in time. Thoughts on the latest Eagles trade? Are you speaking of the Bryce Huff trade to San Francisco for a 2 mid-round picks? And the crown jewel of this is to get out from underneath the damn contract. And I believe Howie Roseman's made clearing about $15 million for this year, and then $5 million for next year or something like that from making this trade. So the Eagles are going to have to go out. I mean, Bryce Huff obviously didn't work. And Bryce Huff was obviously a mistake to offer him a $50 million contract for a guy that was coming off of one good season after about 4 bad ones or 4 mediocre ones. He had one breakout season, and boom, we're offering him this big-ass contract. So this was a mistake by Howie Roseman. This was an absolute terrible mistake. And then he's able to kind of try to move out from under it with the San Francisco 49ers. But it doesn't answer the question of who the hell our edge rushers are going to be in 2025. Now we're definitely one less of the edge rushers. So is this a trade more to open up some cap room this year in order to make a move? Because you got to believe that they're going to have to make a move. The Eagles cannot head into the 2025 season with the edge rusher room as it is. I don't even know who it is anymore. But you'd think they have to bring in somebody. And I think that's probably what they're trying to do right now. They got a lot of draft capital next year they could play around with. And they got that salary cap. So maybe they could bring in somebody, entice the team to trade not a aging veteran, but a veteran that maybe needs a new contract or a reworked contract, and give up a couple of the draft picks in the process. But I'm not going to laud Howie for being this great genius. No, he's the one who screwed this thing up in the first place by bringing the guy here. He was able to get out from under him relatively unscathed, kinda. I mean, we're pushing more money down the road. And I think we saw how that money kind of came to nest this year a little bit. Some of the money from the past was pushed down the road and settled in 2025, and that is why we're sitting with a depleted defensive roster. If you ask me, lost a lot of contributors off that Super Bowl team because I think this was one of those waypoints of where the can stopped as he was kicking it down the road. And I don't know how many waypoints are further on down, but I'm not going to laud him for fixing it. He screwed up in the first place by bringing this guy here. So, but he's able to get out from under it. Now, what do you do? What's the next step? What's the next move? Because that's really what I'm interested in, what the next move is. But yeah, Bryce Huff is no longer an Eagle. Thompson is responsible for this blown mindset, and he has his MLB mindset needs to go retire. You can't tell weak players they are great and get pathetic catchers who don't have days off. Jeez. Who's the pathetic catcher? Is it JT? Don't say that, man. You're going to get the homer. The homer Gestapo is going to come and arrest me, man. You're going to talk negative about the BCIB. What a joke. BCIB. God damn. I hope that ain't true. I hope that that's not what the catching position has degraded to in all of Major League Baseball. That JT Realmuto is the best current MLB catcher now, today. If that's the case, then America has to look serious at itself and produce some more catchers because we're in a bad way. But BCIB, he is not even top 5, maybe top 10. And that would be for his defensive standpoints, not his offense. His offense is probably bottom third of the league when it comes to catchers. He's an automatic out. And the other night, they stole 5 bases against him. So I don't know what's so great about his defense anymore either. So you're right. Thompson is responsible for a blown mindset. But again, you got to, and please, I don't like just taking the side of Rob Thompson here, but I got to. As I said, I'm not the biggest Thompson advocate. And I, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that Rob Thompson deserves another chance and we need to reset it and, reboot it and whatever, bring him back. No. But Rob Thompson was not given a properly constructive roster. He wasn't. I mean, if you're a homer out there and right now you're spinning around in your seat, throwing up pea soup, I'm sorry. But the roster was not properly constructed. We had too many players who are the same player. Too many of the same offensive profiled players. Power hitter, strikeouts a lot, non-disciplined swinger. There's about 7 players on the Phillies roster that fit that mold. What we don't have is a balanced out roster with contact hitters. Now, I don't know, was Bryson Stott supposed to fill the role as one of those contact hitters? Yeah. Was Trey Turner supposed to fill that role as one of those contact hitters? Yeah, probably. But it hasn't happened. Alec Boehm, what the hell is Alec Boehm? He's a tweener. He's not a power hitter and he's not a contact hitter. He's a doubles guy is what they tell me, whatever the hell that means. So the roster is misconstructed. And if you go back through time, Rob Thompson has done a pretty good job. And I think getting as many wins out of this damn team as he could possibly get. Now, he's done also his work in trying to get losses too. I totally agree with that. But I'm just tired of Dave Dombrowski kind of being the new Teflon Don. Nothing sticks to him. It's time to get things to start sticking to Dave Dombrowski, because he's the one who really ultimately created this, and he's the one that holds the power to fix it. But he has not done anything yet externally to do that. And all those missed trade deadline moves that he's made over his time here in Philadelphia, it's just something that you can't be ignored anymore. If you're asking me. And I love the rant. Did you watch it last night? Did you watch me lose my mind? I lost a bit of my soul last night on that show. I had to, man. I had to defend myself. You know, I'm not a big fan of attacking people when they're not here, and I was part of I guess riling up Al over the weekend. I guess I was part of that. Little old me, but yeah, I had to respond, man. I had to respond because of the just the propaganda, man. It was just too much. It was giving me a cavity. Matt, can I add? Yes, Ricky. After the show, we'll do that. What about Trey Hendrickson of the Bengals? What is the asking price? Isn't he holding out for more? Doesn't he want a big time contract? Do the Eagles have enough to sign him this year? You know, or are you just putting all? I mean, what is his? What's his X's and O's? Let's put that up here. I've heard his name floated around. He's a decent prospect. I would, you know what? Let's see, it was Trey Hendrickson, right? Of the Bengals. So let's put up here. Let's put up contracts. Let's go to teams. So Hendrickson is a 28-year-old defensive end who is signed through this year. He's got 1 year left on his deal. $21 million cap hit. Nope, I'm sorry. Well, his value of his contract is $21 million. I believe his AAV is $21 million. So his annual AAV is $21 million. His average salary is $21 million. Guaranteed $8 million. Or maybe it's $8 million. I don't know. 1 year the Eagles would have him for. You know, they're going to have to trade something to get him. And I don't know if I want to, like, I don't know, man. I know it's football and it's not necessarily the same thing when it comes to draft trades or draft picks and what have you, but I still look at that. We're only going to have him for 1 year. And they're not going to be able to re-sign him next year because of the other money that's due out to other players. And it's going to cost you probably a second, a third, maybe a couple seconds, a couple thirds. And I'm not really willing to do that. It all depends on what the Bengals would be interested in taking from me. So we'll see. 28 years old. Yeah, I mean, he's the right age. I don't know. But there is a player out there. Let's take a look at this guy. Where is he at? Where is he? Okay, let's take a look at. So, how's this name float for you? Oh, no. I just looked at his money. Never mind. I ain't going to say it. It's ridiculous. The money is, I didn't realize he's getting paid that much money. Wow. With the talent on the Phillies team, Nick Leva could have won a lot of the games. So bump the bumbling fool, Robbie. I agree and I disagree. How much really has, I disagree with that statement about Nick Leva. Nick Leva was a bumbling fool. Nick Leva is a bumbling fool. He's the definition of a bumbling fool. So I disagree with that, Mike. I disagree. This roster's improperly constructed. Now, going in and making a role for the bullpen, saying you're the starter or you're the closer, you're the setup guy, you're the seventh inning guy, so on and so forth. Would that have gone a long way and maybe stealing a few more wins? Maybe, yeah, potentially. Or maybe do we have a World Series championship? If we had an actual closer or a setup guy or a seventh inning guy, maybe. Or, if we don't pull Wheeler in Game 6, or maybe you were the World Series champions. I don't think Rob Thompson's tenure in this town can be boiled down to a handful of plays or a handful of decisions he didn't do correctly. And there's a bunch of those. And I'm not saying there's not. Between the program losses and the scheduled days, giving players off the day before an off day, or they have an off day. They give them the game off, and then they have another off day. That nonsense I'll never understand that either. I'm not going to sit here, and again, I'm not pumping up Rob Thompson. I'm not the Rob Thompson train of fan clubs here. I'm not that. But I'm telling you, after it's all said and done with, when we look back on this without, emotion guiding us, we're going to be able to look at the starting rotation and this lineup, or lineup in particularly, and be like, this wasn't a good lineup. It was not properly put together correctly. It was not a structured lineup. It was a bunch of hack attackers trying to go out and out home run each other. And that's got little to nothing to do with Rob Thompson. I think the Eagles and call the Falcons to see if Leonard Floyd is available. I thought about also the name. I'll tell you who I was thinking about was TJ Watt from the Steelers, who is also under contract for just one more year. He'd be the outside linebacker hybrid kind of guy that you would have playing that position, but his money is out of control. $28 million AAV. I'm not paying him $28 million for one season. Not going to do that. But you could probably get Watt cheaper than you could probably get him, Hendricks. So I don't know. I don't know how he does, but it's got to be a splash. It can't be Joe Q Public coming in here trying to, rejuvenate his career. I mean, his defense got hit hard in free agency. Hard. A lot harder than the homers want to tell you. A lot harder than the homers want to admit. But it got hit hard. They need to replenish it a little bit, and they need to bring in a known commodity at edge or a known commodity at the outside hybrid edge rusher position. It got hit hard. We can't go into, we could, but I disagree. I would heavily recommend against it going into the season with this depleted of a defense. Well, from I read after trading Huff, the Eagles have like $40 million in cap. I don't think it's $40 million. I heard. There's a way I can go on here right now and do it. What is this thing? Let's do this. All right. Right now, what I'm looking at is 2025 cap tracker. Right now, the Eagles have the 10th most cap money in football. And total cap is $292 million. Cap space, the Eagles got about 100. Wait, that can't be right. So the Eagles got 1 million. How do you read this number? $144 million of cap, but they also have $78 million in dead cap. So I don't know how that. Do you add that all together to come up with the number? Do you take the $1,441,000 in cap available space minus the $78 million in dead cap that the Eagles have right now, and come up with your number? Oh, there it is right there. $31 million. They have $31 million in cap space currently, which is the 10th most in all of football. So $31 million is what I'm looking at right here. It was just to the left of what I was looking at. So $31 million, you can do something with 31 mil. Everyone's pretty much signed, right? Are they going to try to take some of that 31 mil though and roll it into next season because they got to give out a lot of major contracts? But $31 million of cap space at this juncture of the season, or of the offseason, is pretty damn good. That's enough to work there. That's enough to work with. Interesting situation. Hendrickson had 17 and a half sacks on a bad Bengals defense. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's not good. I'm not saying that he's not good at all. But he's only on the control for one more year, man. I want more of that. Younger guy, I want more than that. The Eagles have 14 picks. They do. They do. A lot of those compensation picks they're going to get for losing all those players this offseason. Or is it a day off, non-pitch hit, cost wins, the bullpen exited last season? Yeah, I mean, listen, again, you guys you're misunderstanding my point here. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I am 100% on board. Again, if I woke up tomorrow and they fired Rob Thompson, I would be dancing in the streets along with you. But I want more now. I want my pound of flesh to be exacted in Dave Dombrowski as well. Because Dave Dombrowski is the one who's the architect of all this. He created the mess. He's the one who brought these players here. Rob Thompson did not sign Trey Turner to that contract. No, Rob Thompson did. So if we're going to fire one, we got to fire the other one. That's all I'm saying. All right, guys. A little pause in the action. Let's remind everybody on the network or who's watching tonight that this network is the purveyors of fine programming such as the Birds Blast. Got into some Eagles conversation tonight, man. The Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn, the quintessential Eagle pregame show. Every week, me and Kyle Quinn will come on here and give you our version of an Eagle pregame show. Now, that is what we do is we look at the game that was the week prior, and then we also preview the game that's coming up. A lot of good fun. I really enjoy doing the Birds Blast with Kyle. We've been doing it for 6 years together. So make sure you're tuned in this football season for the Birds Blast. Typically middle of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday timeframe during the football season. So make sure you're tuned in. And then your Sunday mornings, of course, will never be the same as long as the PNM and the AM are in your life. Pat, Mike, and Al Zafiri producing every Sunday morning at 9. And every Thursday night at 9 p.m., it's the Attacking Third with Pat Bernard and Steve Fuentes. Make sure you're tuned in for all the latest and greatest in Union and MLS coverage. And then our show here, The Final Word with MattyB, every Sunday through Thursday at 10 p.m. And then the wraparound with Pat Bernard on its new date and time, Fridays at 10:30. And there you go, all the great things that are on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. So I promise you tonight the start of another list, and I'm going to give it to you right now. 10, you know what, before I do that, I do want to touch on the Flyers. Let's talk Flyers, then we'll get into my greatest list. So the Flyers have started making some moves, and of course we know the big one, Rick Tocchet, new head coach, starting to round out his staff. But the Flyers on the player side have also made some moves. They've re-signed restricted free agent Tyson Forrester to a 2-year contract extension. Now, a lot of people are all like, well, that was a no-brainer. They should have done that because he had such a great breakout season. It's a little different in hockey when it comes to RFAs. Tyson Forrester had no options. It was the Flyers or it that he hadn't really, he could have, I don't want to, okay, I'll explain it real quick. How restricted free agency in the NHL works is that the Flyers had to July 1st to give Tyson Forrester a contract extension. If Tyson Forrester on July 1st said, you know what, I kind of like this, but I'm going to sit on this for a while and see what shakes loose. And say another team comes in and says, you know what, we like Tyson Forrester. We're going to offer him this. And then the Flyers counter with, then the Flyers have exclusive one-up rights. So if a team offers, the Flyers offered them, I don't know, say they offered them 2 years at $100 million, right? I know that's a weird number, but 2 years for $100 million. And another team says, you know what, we're going to offer him 2 years and $110 million. Then it goes right back to the Flyers, and the Flyers can say, okay, we're going to offer him 2 years and $111 million. And that's it. Done deal. He has to sign the contract. Or the Flyers could say, you know what, we're not going to offer him a contract on July 1st, thus making him a UFA in August. But restricted free agents really are, it's an exercise in futility, if you ask me, because even if a team is able to wrangle away a player from another team through offering them a contract that is not matched, i.e. the Shea Weber situation with the Flyers years ago, even if they're able to get that taken care of, they would still owe the Flyers, in this case, a boatload of draft pick compensation for taking an RFA. And for example, if you were able to pluck a former first round pick, and I don't what I think Tyson Foerster was second round pick. But for example, a first round pick, if you're able to steal a first round pick away while they're an RFA, you would owe the Flyers your next 5 years worth of first round draft picks. It's not even worth it, man. Unless you're talking about Connor McDavid or a Draisaitl or a player like that. It certainly ain't worth it if I'm an organization dealing with Tyson Foerster, who's had a very nice breakout offensive career or offensive season this year. So he is now a Flyer for the next 2 years. Now, in 2 years from now, he will become a UFA because he's already signed his RFA contracts. He'll be you get your entry-level deal and you get 2 RFA contracts, and then you hit the open market as a free agent. So he is in 2 years from now, he'll be a UFA. Flyers also re-signed Helge Grans to a 2-year two-way contract, and Rodrigo Abos and Oscar Eklund as well to 1-year two-way contracts. So some depth moves, some Lehigh Valley moves, and of course Tyson Foerster. So the Flyers are starting to get a little active, and of course the big thing is going to come here at the end of June for the draft. But it's good to see the Flyers getting a little active on that. But Tyson Foerster is now going to be here for at least 2 more years before hitting the open market as a UFA in hockey. So we addressed the Flyers, which was good. If Dombrowski is fired, I'm assuming that Don Mattingly's son, who is the GM, would take over. But if not him, then who? Who then? I still like Theo Epstein, who is consulting for Boston. You're asking me who would take over as the top executive in the Phillies organization? I have no idea. What the hell do I know? It's maybe a Preston Mattingly would take. Do they even need a president of baseball operations in the short term through the rest of the season? Probably not. And Preston Mattingly is not really the real GM. It's Feud or Fjord, whatever his name is. He's taking a leave of absence to go back to college. So Preston Mattingly is kind of filling in. And I don't know if they would, turn a temp job into the president of baseball operations for the Philadelphia Phillies to Preston Mattingly. I don't know who your new president is. And obviously that's something we could look at, but I don't know. I don't know who that would be. Joey wants to know, who do I think is going to win the Stanley Cup? Don't we have a rematch between Florida and Edmonton? I see the dawn of the Florida Panther dynasty. I don't think Edmonton has enough goaltending, honestly. So I think I see a repeat for the Panthers, and that's what I see. But all right, now let's do our top 10 list. So now I promised you last week we would get into our top 10 Phillies best trades in Phillies history. We went over the top worst, and I want to go do my top 10. Like I did the worst in my history, and I want to do the top 10. So let me see. Let me get it up here. I did create something, and I want to make sure that I got it right. All right, here it is. Got it. So my top 10 trade in Phillies history, my top number 10 favorite trade in Phillies history is a recent trade. And it's a trade that involves JT Realmuto. That's right. On February 7th, 2019, the Phillies got JT from the Marlins in exchange for Sixto Sanchez, Jorge Alfaro, Will Stewart, and some international signing bonus money. Obviously, Sixto Sanchez was the crown jewel of that trade for both teams. The Phillies were going to be moving off of a highly touted pitching prospect, and the Marlins were getting a highly touted young pitching prospect for a catcher who was kind of getting a little long in the tooth. Phillies needed a catcher. Obviously, Jorge Alfaro wasn't really doing it for filling in for Carlos Ruiz. And who was the other one? Who was the other catcher? Not Knapp. What was the guy's name that we had? Cameron Rupp was the other catcher that was sort of here during that time. Well, they weren't getting it done. We needed a catcher to go along with our new toy, Bryce Harper. So I was obviously not for this trade because I was big time involved with Sixto. I thought he was going to be the next great thing. I don't even think Sixto Sanchez is pitching anymore. I think he's out of the game. Had some massive arm problems when he got traded. Has not really ever been anything. And JT Realmuto, for the most part, without this season, has been pretty damn good. But it's the honeymoon's over. But it's good enough for me for this trade to go to my 10th slot of my greatest Phillies trades of all times. JT Realmuto for Sixto Sanchez, Jorge Alfaro, Will Stewart, and some international signing bonus money. So there you go, folks. I promised you the greatest trades in Phillies history, and now we're off and running. Number 10 is in the books. So there you go. What time tomorrow night? After the fight's final, probably around 10:30. All right, let's go to the other night segment. Man, I am exhausted, boy. I'm barely hanging on here, man. Okay, here we go. The of the night segment here on the final word with Matty B. Last night we were involved in the NHL draft. Well, tonight we're going to go to the MLB draft as we're coming down the stretch for both of these events. And yes, we will be covering both first rounds here on this network in some capacity, folks. Just trying to work out the X's and O's right now of that. But we're going to head back to the MLB draft, and tonight's draft prospect on the of the night segment is Brock Sell, the outfielder from Tokay, California. He's a high schooler, a left-handed hitter. Sell has shown off elite bat-to-ball skills, and some area scouts compare his pure hit top favorably with 2020 first-rounder Nick York. He has a quick, short swing and almost no load, allowing him to get his barrel through the zone quickly. He can catch up to premium stuff and turn around a Seth Hernandez 100 mile an hour fastball at the area code games over the summer. Area code games. Wow. He's more hit over power right now, and there's the wonder about his future impact, but there is some strength for him to tap into down the road. Now, he is a commit to Stanford right now. So that might play into some people's, decisions to draft him. They can draft a college player. You can have a committed player playing in college who's drafted. So we'll see where that comes into play. But he's probably going to be in the lower part of the first round as well. Again, when I look at that 26th realm of where the Phillies will be drafting, this is somebody the Phillies might want to take a look at. Obviously, he's light years away from Major League Baseball. But Brock Sell from Tokay, California, a high schooler. So we'll see how that goes. And that is your of the night segment. So we're getting there, man. We're getting down to the end of these draft prospects. Let's see this here. Phil, what time live tomorrow night? Phillies are shutting down Painter for a week at the All-Star break. Shutting down Painty for a week. What do you mean by that? Is it medically related, or is it you think it's because they're getting ready to send him up? What is that all about? And why would they make a bold something like? Why would they say like the All-Star break's like in 6 weeks? Why are they predicting what they're going to do with the pitcher 6 weeks from now? All right, let's get into this card review. Yep, Matty B's card review. This is obviously my favorite all-time favorite part of the show, where we sit down and we talk some sports cards. Last night we finally got out of the 87 tops. We were on to the 2018 tops with Rafael Devers, but I warned you that we'd be returning to the 87 tops at some point. Well, that point's tonight because we're back. That's right, we're back. 87 tops once again in the house. A Hall of Famer. a former Philly prospect, and of course, my number one overall worst trade in Philly's history player. Ryan Sandberg is our card of the night, and it's his 87 Topps card is the card we're going to look at, and there it is in all of its glory. Interesting fact about this particular card: 87 Topps is probably about, I don't know, about 7 years into Ryan Sandberg's playing career. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 6 years into his permanent time as a starter for the Chicago Cubs. So I would say, in relative speaking, it's a midpoint card of his career, right? It's not at the beginning part of his career. It's not when he's locked in his Hall of Fame status. He's definitely a known commodity and one of the best players in Major League Baseball at this stage of his career, 100%. But there's nothing really earth-shattering about this card in any kind of aspect that I can see, other than the fact that, of course, it's 87 Topps, which is one of the more iconic and widely looked at baseball cards in the history of the world. But this card, raw, without any grade to it, it's fetching about $28. Now, graded as a PSA 10, let's call it a 10, I'm looking at this card at about, I'm looking at this card at close to $500 for an 87 Ryan Sandberg. Truly, absolutely amazing. And I'm not going to get into the Ryan. We all know what he was. We all know where he came from, and we all know what he did. So, Ryan Sandberg, who's of course battling some health issues right now, and good luck, and I hope everything works out for him. This is a weird card that has a lot of value, more value than you would think that an 87 Topps Ryan Sandberg would have. Again, raw, you're looking at about $30 card, and this is what I am looking at right here, because here's my 87 Ryan Sandberg. Of course, from the iconic 87 Topps. Massive cutting issues with a lot of these cards that came off the assembly line back in the day. And improper cutting is not a defect that is that pays. No, it's not. It's a defect. It's a manufacturer's error. But this card is not in bad shape. I got some 87 Topps that are just purely bad. There is some cutting with this. There are some cutting issues with this card. But I probably, to a Ryan Sandberg collector, ungraded or raw, I could move this for $15. I bet you I can get $15 for it, which is very impressive for a card that was made back in 1987 that features Ryan Sandberg about 7 years into his baseball career. And here it is. So there's your card of the night, the 87 Topps Ryan Sandberg. And I hope you guys enjoyed that thoroughly, because I enjoyed doing it. They're getting ready to send them. Yeah, well, I heard that too. We'll see. We'll definitely see. We'll talk about that tomorrow night, Joe. How's that sound? Talk about that, because we're at about an hour. And that's going to wrap me up. A quiet night here on the program. We got into some more talk about the Phillies. We also got into some Eagles and Flyers talk tonight too. We did our of the night, and we did our card of the night as well. We did a lot of things that we normally do. Day in Philadelphia sports history as well. I'm going to wrap it up. And tomorrow I will be back after the Titans final. So don't forget, we're back in action tomorrow where the Phillies are up in Toronto. Steve Fenentes will have you on the Titans final, and I will be seeing immediately following the Titans final tomorrow night. So make sure you're back here at around 10:30. Call it safe, around 10:30. Until we talk again, folks, I want to wish you guys a great rest of your night and even better tomorrow. Get some sleep out there, because God knows I am. So I have to go back to work. But we'll talk again real soon. You guys take care. Have a great night.